The armrest cracked under Luna Serafina's grip as another wave of nausea rolled through her. She pressed her free hand against her still flat stomach, where their child, was growing. The secret she'd planned to share with Alpha King Dominic at the summit now felt like a precious gift she could barely contain. Then she caught his scent. Not just his usual cedar and storm smell, but something else. Something wrong. Her wolf stirred uneasily as the scent grew stronger, mixed with cheap perfume and the cloying sweetness of another female's arousal. Serafina's head snapped up. 3 rows ahead, Dominic's dark hair was visible over the seat back. But he wasn't alone. The blonde flight attendant, Isabella, her name tag had read, was leaning close, whispering something that made Dominic's shoulders shake with silent laughter. Soon, my love, Isabella's voice carried just enough for supernatural hearing to catch. Once we land, you can announce me as your new Luna. That frigid wife of yours will finally be gone. The world tilted. Not from turbulence, but from the crushing weight of betrayal. She's been distant lately, Dominic's familiar voice responded, and each word was a knife to Serafina's heart. Cold. Nothing like you, Bella. You make me feel alive again. Serafina's claws extended involuntarily, puncturing the leather armrest. The other first-class passengers were human, oblivious to the supernatural drama unfolding. She could shift right here, right now, and tear both their throats out before anyone could blink. But the life growing inside her held her wolf in check. Instead, she stood on shaking legs and walked the few steps to Dominic's row. Isabella was practically in his lap, her hand on his chest, lips inches from his ear. Hello, husband. Both of them jerked apart. Isabella's face went white, but Dominic's expression shifted from surprise to cold indifference in seconds. Serafina. I thought you were sleeping. Hard to sleep when my mate is making promises to replace me. Her voice was steady, but her wolf was snarling just beneath the surface. Especially when I have news. Isabella's hand moved protectively to Dominic's arm. Dom, you don't have to listen to her jealous accusations. Dom? Serafina's laugh was bitter. How intimate. Tell me, Bella, does he purr for you the way he used to for me? Enough. Dominic stood, his 6 feet 4 inches frame towering over both women. Other passengers were starting to stare, but his alpha presence made them look away quickly. Isabella, give us privacy. The flight attendant hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave her prize. I'll be right back, Dom, don't let her manipulate you. Once she was gone, Dominic's mask slipped completely. His eyes were cold amber, nothing like the warm gold she'd fallen in love with 5 years ago. What do you want, Serafina? She placed a hand over her stomach, watching his face carefully. I'm pregnant. For a moment, just one, she saw a flicker of the man she'd married. Wonder, joy, protective instinct. Then it was gone, replaced by something ugly. Whose is it? The question hit her like a physical blow. What did you just say to me? You heard me. We haven't shared a bed in months. You've been pulling away, making excuses. His voice dropped to a harsh whisper. I know you've been seeing someone else. I've been sick, you bastard. Morning sickness, exhaustion, I was waiting for the right moment to tell you. Her composure cracked. How dare you accuse me of? Because I know you, Serafina. Cold. Calculating. This is just another play for power, isn't it? Get pregnant by some other wolf and pass the bastard off as mine? She slapped him. Hard enough that his head snapped to the side, hard enough that several passengers gasped. When he looked back at her, his eyes had gone completely wolf. Dangerous. Predatory. You want to know who I've been with? Her voice rose despite her efforts to control it. No one. While you were apparently screwing flight attendants and planning to replace me, I was home, alone, growing your heir. My heir? He laughed, the sound making nearby humans shift nervously in their seats. From a woman who flinches every time I touch her. Who turns away when I try to kiss her. You're barren, Serafina. We've been trying for years with nothing to show for it. Because I was stressed. Because running a pack with you became impossible when you started treating me like an ornament instead of your partner. Isabella reappeared, her timing suspiciously perfect. Is everything all right? Dom, you look upset. Everything's fine, Bella. His arm went around the flight attendant's waist, a possessive gesture that made Serafina's wolf howl with rage. We were just discussing the terms of our divorce. Divorce? Serafina's voice cracked. You're going to divorce your pregnant mate for this human whore? Isabella gasped, pressing closer to Dominic. She called me. I heard what she called you. Dominic's eyes flashed. And I think it's time my wife learned some manners. He moved faster than human eyes could follow. One moment Serafina was standing in the aisle, the next she was pressed against the emergency exit, Dominic's hand around her throat. Dom, stop. Isabella's voice seemed very far away. People are watching. But Dominic was past caring. His wolf was in control now, and it saw Serafina as a threat to its new mate. You want to play games? He snarled against her ear. Fine. Let's see how well you land on your feet. Before she could process what he meant, his hand was on the emergency handle. The door gave way with a deafening roar, and then she was falling. Falling. The transformation hit her mid-plummet. Bones cracking, muscles stretching, her human form giving way to silver fur and fangs. Her wolf was stronger, built for survival, but 30,000 feet was 30,000 feet. She hit the tree lean with enough force to black out, branches breaking her fall but not her ribs. When consciousness returned, she was naked, bloody, and very much alive in the middle of nowhere. Above her, contrails marked where the plane continued toward the summit. Where Dominic would arrive with his new woman and spin whatever story he chose about his missing wife. Serafina's hand moved to her stomach, checking for damage. The baby, somehow, miraculously, the baby was still there. Still safe. She was alone in the wilderness, presumed dead, carrying the heir to a pack that had just cast her out. But she was alive. And Alpha King Dominic had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Chapter 2. The scent of blood and broken bone hit Kai's shadow moon before he saw the body. He'd been tracking a deer through the dense Oregon wilderness when the metallic tang stopped him cold. His wolf stirred uneasily. Blood was nothing new out here, but this was different. This was pack blood. And it was everywhere. Kai followed the scent trail through snapped branches and gouged earth until he found her. A woman, naked and unconscious, her silver hair matted with blood. She lay crumpled at the base of a massive Douglas fir, surrounded by debris that looked like it had fallen from the sky. His enhanced hearing picked up the faint, irregular beat of her heart. Barely alive, but alive nonetheless. For 5 years, Kai had lived by one simple rule: don't get involved. The world had made its judgment about him, branded him a murderer and exile. He owed nothing to anyone, especially not to pack wolves who would kill him on sight. But as he knelt beside the broken woman, her scent hit him fully. Luna. This wasn't just any pack wolf. This was someone high-ranking, someone important. Her scent carried authority, power, and something else, something that made his protective instincts roar to life despite his better judgment. Damn, he muttered, running a hand through his dark hair. He should walk away. Should let nature take its course and avoid whatever trouble this woman represented. Instead, he gathered her carefully in his arms. She was lighter than she looked, all sharp angles and delicate bones. Some of which were definitely broken. Her left arm hung at an unnatural angle, and he could see the shallow rise and fall of her chest that suggested cracked ribs. But she was breathing. Her heart was beating. Whatever had happened to her, her wolf had done its job, kept her alive when by all rights she should be dead. The trek back to his den took 20 minutes of careful navigation through terrain that would challenge even an experienced hiker. Kai had chosen this location precisely because it was inaccessible, hidden deep in the Cascade Mountains where even the most determined pack hunters couldn't track him. His home was more cave than cabin, a natural formation he'd expanded and modified over the years. Solar panels hidden among the trees provided basic electricity, and a natural spring supplied fresh water. It wasn't luxury, but it was secure. And right now, security mattered more than comfort. He laid the unconscious woman on his bed, the only bed in the place, and began the careful process of assessing her injuries. Years of living alone had taught him basic field medicine, and his wolf's enhanced healing would help, but she was in bad shape. Broken left arm. 3 cracked ribs. Concussion. Dozens of cuts and bruises that painted her pale skin in shades of purple and red. But no internal bleeding that he could detect. No damage to the spine. Whoever she was incredibly lucky. Kai worked methodically, setting the arm with makeshift splints and wrapping her ribs. His hands were gentle, professional, but he couldn't ignore the way her scent affected him. There was something about her that called to his wolf in ways he'd thought dead and buried. Don't be an idiot, he told himself. She's pack. She's trouble. And she's not yours to save. But his hands continued their careful work anyway. It was while he was cleaning a particularly deep gash on her shoulder that he caught it, another scent, layered beneath her own. His hands stilled. His wolf went rigid. Pregnant. This woman was carrying a child. That changed everything. Pack law was absolute when it came to pregnant females. They were protected above all else, even by enemies. But as he processed the various scents clinging to her skin, one made his blood turn to ice. He knew that smell. Had been haunted by it for 5 years. Dominic. Alpha King Dominic Blackthorn, the bastard who had destroyed Kai's life, killed his mate, and sent him into exile based on lies and fabricated evidence. This woman belonged to Dominic. And she was carrying his heir. Kai's hands began to shake. He stepped back from the bed, his mind racing with possibilities that ranged from divine justice to cosmic cruel joke. The woman who might be his only chance at revenge was lying broken and helpless in his bed. Carrying the child of his greatest enemy. He could kill her. Should kill her. End Dominic's bloodline before it had a chance to perpetuate the cycle of corruption and lies. But even as the dark thoughts swirled, his wolf recoiled. She was pregnant. Innocent. And something about her scent suggested she wasn't here willingly. Kai forced himself to finish bandaging her wounds, then retreated to the other side of the cave to think. And plan. And figure out what the hell he was going to do with Luna Serafina Blackthorn, because now that the scents had settled, he knew exactly who she was. The Ice Queen. Dominic's perfect, untouchable mate. The woman who stood silently beside him at every pack gathering, beautiful and cold as winter moonlight. What was she doing broken and bleeding in the middle of nowhere? Consciousness returned slowly, like swimming up through dark water. Serafina's first awareness was pain, a deep, throbbing ache that seemed to emanate from every part of her body. The second was warmth. She was lying on something soft, covered with thick furs that smelled like pine and leather and something else. Something wild and masculine and unfamiliar. Her eyes snapped open. Stone walls. Rough-hewn furniture. The flicker of firelight dancing across unfamiliar surroundings. And sitting across the small space, watching her with predator-still intensity, was a man she'd never seen but somehow recognized. Kai Shadow Moon. Even sitting perfectly motionless, he radiated danger. Dark hair fell across his forehead, framing a face that was all sharp angles and harsh beauty. His eyes were the pale green of sea glass, and they were fixed on her with an expression she couldn't read. But she knew who he was. Every pack wolf knew the story, the exiled alpha who had murdered his own mate in a jealous rage 5 years ago. The rogue who lived in the wilderness, killing anyone foolish enough to hunt him. Terror shot through her, sharp and bright. Easy, he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the stone walls. You're safe. Safe? Her voice came out as a croak. You're Kai Shadow Moon. Guilty. He didn't move, didn't even blink. And you're Luna Serafina Blackthorn. Though I have to wonder what the Alpha King's precious mate is doing crashed in my territory. The events on the plane came rushing back, Dominic's betrayal, the fight, the terrible moment when he'd opened that door and sent her falling through empty air. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. Still flat, but she could sense the life there. Still safe. Still growing. He threw me out, she said, the words feeling surreal even as she spoke them. Dominic threw me out of a plane. Kai's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those pale eyes. That's quite an accusation. It's not an accusation. It's what happened. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as pain lanced through her ribs. I told him I was pregnant, and he accused me of cheating. Then his new girlfriend convinced him to get rid of me permanently. New girlfriend? Some flight attendant named Isabella. Human. The word came out like a curse. He was ready to replace me with a human woman rather than believe his own mate was carrying his heir. This time Kai's reaction was visible, a slight tightening around his eyes, a barely perceptible shift in his posture. You're pregnant, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes. She met his gaze directly, despite every instinct screaming at her to look away. With Dominic's child. The child he threw away along with me. Kai was quiet for a long moment, his pale eyes studying her face as if searching for lies. Finally, he stood, and Serafina was reminded why everyone feared him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with the fluid grace of a predator. Everything about him screamed dangerous. You should eat, he said, turning toward what she now realized was a small kitchen area. You've been unconscious for 18 hours. You're not going to kill me? The question slipped out before she could stop it. He paused, his back still to her. Should I? Everyone says you murdered your mate. Everyone says a lot of things. He began pulling items from shelves, bread, dried meat, what looked like homemade preserves. Doesn't make them true. So you didn't kill her? This time he did turn around, and the expression on his face made her blood freeze. Pure, undiluted rage burned in his eyes, but somehow she knew it wasn't directed at her. I loved Elena more than my own life, he said, his voice deadly quiet. I would have moved mountains for her. Died for her. The idea that I could hurt her. He stopped, visibly controlling himself. No. I didn't kill my mate. But someone did. Someone who made sure I took the blame. The absolute certainty in his voice, the raw pain beneath the anger, Serafina found herself believing him. Which was dangerous, because trusting the wrong alpha had already nearly gotten her killed. Why are you helping me? She asked. Good question. He returned to preparing food, his movements sharp and efficient. Maybe because you're pregnant, and even exiled murderers have some standards. Maybe because I'm curious why the perfect Luna is suddenly not so perfect in her mate's eyes. He brought her a plate of simple food and a cup of water, setting both within reach but not coming close enough to touch her. Or maybe, he continued, settling back in his chair, because you're carrying the heir of the man who destroyed my life, and I'm trying to decide what that's worth to me. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Serafina's wolf stirred uneasily, recognizing the danger even as her human mind tried to process it. What do you mean? I mean, Luna Serafina, that you've landed right in the middle of a very old, very personal war. And your precious cargo makes you either the most valuable hostage in the supernatural world. His smile was cold as winter. Or the perfect revenge. Serafina's blood turned to ice. She'd escaped one alpha who wanted to destroy her, only to fall into the hands of another who had even better reasons to want her dead. But as she looked at Kai's shadow moon, really looked at him, she saw something that gave her the faintest spark of hope. He'd bandaged her wounds. Fed her. Made sure she was warm and safe while she healed. A man planning revenge didn't usually start with medical care. So which is it going to be? She asked, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. Hostage or revenge? Kai's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. I haven't decided yet. The fire crackled between them, the only sound in the sudden silence. Two wolves, both betrayed, both broken in different ways. Both carrying secrets that could either destroy them or set them free. Serafina took a careful bite of bread, her mind already working. She'd survived Dominic's betrayal and a 30,000-foot fall. She could survive this too. But first, she had to figure out whether Kai's shadow moon was her salvation or her damnation. And judging by the way he was watching her, like a chess master contemplating his next move, she suspected he was trying to figure out the exact same thing. Chapter 3. The fever started 3 days later. Serafina woke to fire burning through her veins and her wolf clawing desperately at her consciousness. Something was wrong, terribly, dangerously wrong. Kai, she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. He was there instantly, as if he'd been watching her sleep. His cool hand pressed against her forehead, and she heard him curse under his breath. You're burning up. His fingers moved to her throat, checking her pulse. When did this start? Just now. Something's wrong with the baby. Panic clawed at her chest as another wave of heat rolled through her. I can't lose this baby. It's all I have left. Kai's expression went grim. Stay still. I need to check something. His hands moved to her abdomen, pressing gently through the thin shirt he'd given her to wear. His touch sent shockwaves through her system, not just from the fever, but something deeper. Something that made her wolf purr despite the circumstances. Your scent, he said quietly. It's changing. The pregnancy hormones are affecting your system. This isn't just fever, your body is trying to trigger a heat cycle. That's impossible. I'm pregnant. It's rare, but it happens. Especially under stress. His hands moved away, leaving her skin cold despite the fever. The baby is fighting for resources while your wolf is trying to ensure genetic diversity. If we don't get this under control, you could lose the pregnancy. Terror shot through her. This baby was everything, her future, her hope, the only good thing that had come from 5 years of an increasingly loveless marriage. What do I need to do? Trust me. His pale eyes met hers. I know healing herbs that can help stabilize your hormones, but you'll need to let me take care of you completely. No fighting me, no questions. Can you do that? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Kai moved with efficient purpose, gathering supplies from various corners of the cave. She watched through fever-bright eyes as he mixed dried herbs, ground roots, and what looked like tree bark into a thick paste. Drink this, he said, returning with a cup of something that smelled like pine and bitter earth. Serafina managed 3 sips before her stomach rebelled. The liquid came back up immediately, along with what little food she'd managed earlier. Shit. Kai knelt beside the bed, holding her hair back as another wave of nausea hit. Your system is rejecting everything. We need to try a different approach. What approach? She managed between dry heaves. Skin contact. The herbs can be absorbed through your pores if I make them into a salve. But... He hesitated. I'll need to apply it directly to your skin. All of your skin. Even through the fever haze, she understood what he was saying. You mean I have to be naked? The treatment won't work through clothing. And given your current state, I'm the only one who can do it. His voice was carefully neutral. But if you're not comfortable, do it. The words came out sharper than she intended. I'm not losing this baby because of modesty. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or respect. All right. But first, you need to understand something. Physical contact between unmated wolves can trigger responses. Especially when one of them is already in a compromised hormonal state. Heat that had nothing to do with fever crept up her neck. You think I'll try to seduce you? I think your wolf might try to claim me as a substitute mate. And mine might respond. His expression was deadly serious. If that happens, I need you to fight it. For both our sakes. She nodded, though part of her wondered if she'd be able to fight anything in her current condition. Kai left her alone to undress, returning only after she'd managed to work her way out of the borrowed clothes and pull the furs up to her chin. The fever was getting worse, making her shiver despite the heat radiating from her skin. "Close your eyes," he said softly. "Focus on the baby. Think about keeping them safe." His hands were gentle as he began working the herbal salve into her shoulders and arms. The mixture was warm and slightly numbing, providing almost immediate relief from the burning sensation under her skin. But the relief came with a price. Every touch of his fingers sent sparks through her nervous system. Her wolf stirred restlessly, recognizing something in Kai's scent that made her want to arch into his touch. "Tell me about the plane," he said, his voice carefully conversational as he worked. "What really happened up there?" Maybe it was the fever, or the intimacy of his hands on her skin, but the words came pouring out. The whole sordid story, how she'd been pulling away from Dominic because his increasing coldness and political maneuvering had killed her love for him. How she'd been so excited to share the news of their baby, thinking it would bring them back together. The devastating discovery of his affair, his cruel accusations, and finally the moment when he'd thrown her from the plane like she was garbage. "He said I was barren," she whispered as Kai's hands worked the salve into her back. "5 years we tried, and when it finally happened, he accused me of cheating." "You weren't cheating. It wasn't a question. Never. Even when our marriage became a political arrangement instead of a partnership, I honored my vows." "But Dominic." She shook her head. "I think he'd been looking for an excuse to get rid of me for a while. Isabella was just the catalyst." Kai's hand stilled against her spine. "Isabella?" "The flight attendant. Young, blonde, human. Everything I'm not." The words tasted bitter. He was so taken with her, he was ready to throw away 5 years and his legitimate heir for a chance to play with his new toy. "Humans don't usually survive mating with alphas." Kai's voice was thoughtful. "Either he doesn't care if he kills her, or what? Or someone's convinced him she's stronger than she appears." His hands resumed their work, but she could feel the tension in his touch. "My mate Elena was unusually strong for a wolf. Strong enough that Marcus thought she'd make a perfect Luna for him." "Marcus?" The name was familiar, but the fever made it hard to think clearly. "Dominic's beta. He wanted Elena from the moment he saw her, but she was already mine. So he decided to remove the obstacle." Kai's voice went flat and cold. "He staged it perfectly. Made it look like I'd lost control during a fight, killed her in a jealous rage. Had witnesses, planted evidence, even got Elena's blood on my clothes while I was trying to save her." The pain in his voice was raw, even 5 years later. Serafina found herself wanting to comfort him, to ease the burden he'd been carrying alone. "How do you know it was Marcus?" "Because Elena managed to whisper his name before she died. But by then the setup was too perfect, and Dominic chose to believe his beta over an outsider he'd never fully trusted anyway." Kai's laugh was bitter. "Turned out to be a smart political move. Marcus has been whispering poison in his ear ever since, consolidating power while Dominic focuses on his public image." "You think Marcus was behind this too? Behind Isabella?" "I think Marcus has been playing a very long game. And your pregnancy might have threatened whatever endgame he has planned." The implications made her head spin, though that might have been the fever. "You mean this was all orchestrated?" "I mean you should rest while the herbs work." Kai's hands moved to her legs, working the salve into her calves with professional efficiency. "We can figure out conspiracies after we make sure you and the baby survive the next few hours." But as his touch moved higher, the conversation died entirely. The combination of fever, pregnancy hormones, and whatever was in the herbal mixture was making her skin hypersensitive. Every brush of his fingers sent heat spiraling through her, and her wolf was becoming increasingly agitated. "Mine," her inner voice whispered. "Protect. Claim. Mine." "Kai," she gasped as his hands worked the salve into her thighs. "I know." His voice was strained. Your scent is changing. Fight it, Serafina. But fighting was becoming impossible. The fever was breaking, but in its place came something far more dangerous, a heat that had nothing to do with illness and everything to do with the way Kai's hands felt on her skin. When his fingers accidentally brushed the sensitive skin at the apex of her thighs, she arched off the bed with a soft cry. Damn it. Kai's hands jerked away like she'd burned him. This isn't working. You're going into heat. I can't. But even as she said it, she could feel the change in her body. The desperate, aching need that had nothing to do with her pregnancy and everything to do with the male kneeling beside her bed. I'm mated. I can't. You're not mated. His voice was rough, and when she opened her eyes, she saw that his pupils had dilated to thin rings of green around black centers. Dominic broke that bond the moment he chose another woman over you. Your wolf knows it even if your mind doesn't. The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. The mate bond she'd cherished for 5 years was gone, severed not by death but by betrayal. She was free, terrifyingly, completely free. And her body was responding to the first male who'd shown her genuine care in longer than she could remember. This is wrong, she whispered, even as every fiber of her being urged her to reach for him. I know. But Kai's eyes were locked on her face, and she could see his own struggle reflected there. You're pregnant with another man's child. You're vulnerable, hurting, not thinking clearly. I should walk away. Should, she agreed, her voice barely audible. But God help me, I don't want to. The admission hung between them like a challenge. Serafina could feel her resolve crumbling with every second that passed, every breath that brought his scent deeper into her lungs. When he leaned forward, she didn't pull away. When his hand cupped her cheek, she leaned into the touch. And when his lips brushed hers, gentle, questioning, giving her every opportunity to stop this, she kissed him back instead. The kiss exploded into something desperate and consuming. 5 years of loneliness, betrayal, and emotional starvation poured out of her as Kai's mouth claimed hers. His hands tangled in her hair, and she could feel the careful control he'd been maintaining begin to slip. Serafina, he growled against her lips. Please. She didn't even know what she was asking for, only that she needed it more than her next breath. His mouth moved to her throat, finding the spot where another man's mark had once been. The skin there was smooth now, unmarked, available. For one perfect, terrifying moment, she thought he might claim her. Might make her his in a way that would bind them together forever. Instead, he wrenched himself away with a sound like a wounded animal. No. He was breathing hard, his hands shaking as he put distance between them. Not like this. Not when you're not thinking clearly. I am thinking clearly. But even as she said it, she could feel the heat haze clouding her judgment. You're in heat, pregnant, and traumatized. I won't take advantage of that. His voice was firm, but she could see the cost of his nobility in the tension of his shoulders. You deserve better than a broken rogue who can't even clear his own name. The rejection stung more than it should have. So what now? You just leave me here to suffer through this alone? No. He grabbed a clean shirt from his dresser and pulled it over his head, hiding the evidence of how much the encounter had affected him. I'll stay close enough to help if you need it. But we can't do this, Serafina. Not when there are so many reasons it would be wrong. Before she could respond, a sound from outside made them both freeze. The distant whine of engines approaching through the forest. Helicopters, Kai said, moving to the window. Multiple aircraft, heading this direction. Fear cut through the haze of unfulfilled desire. Are they looking for me? Maybe. Or maybe word has gotten out that I'm harboring the Alpha King's mate. He grabbed a rifle from the wall and checked the ammunition. Either way, we need to know what we're dealing with. He turned on a battery-powered radio, cycling through frequencies until he found a news broadcast. Tragic accident during a routine flight to the Pack Summit has claimed the life of Luna Serafina Blackthorn, beloved mate of Alpha King Dominic. The Luna apparently fell from the aircraft during severe turbulence, and despite extensive search efforts, No trace of her body has been found. In a statement released this morning, Alpha King Dominic announced his engagement to Isabella Moreau, whom he credits with helping him through this difficult time. The radio seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Serafina stared at the device in shock. He's already engaged to her? It's been 3 days. And he's made sure everyone thinks you're dead, Kai added grimly. Which means those helicopters aren't search and rescue. The implications hit her like a physical blow. Dominic had not only thrown her away, he'd made sure she could never come back. Her death had been the perfect solution to his political problem, clearing the way for his new life. And now, if those aircraft had somehow tracked her here, they weren't coming to rescue her. They were coming to make Dominic's lie into truth. What do we do? She asked, pulling the furs around herself more tightly. Kai's smile was sharp and dangerous. We disappear. And then we figure out how to make everyone who betrayed us pay. The sound of helicopters grew closer, and Serafina realized that her old life was truly over. Whatever came next, there was no going back to the woman she'd been. But as she watched Kai prepare for whatever was coming, she thought that might not be entirely a bad thing. After all, the woman she'd been had nearly gotten herself and her baby killed. Maybe it was time to become someone stronger. Chapter 4. The helicopters passed overhead without stopping, their search pattern moving deeper into the mountains. But Kai remained tense for hours afterward, watching the skies with the paranoid vigilance of a man who'd survived 5 years as a wanted fugitive. They'll be back, he said finally, lowering his rifle. Maybe not today, but soon. Someone knows you're alive. Serafina pulled his borrowed sweater tighter around herself, still weak from the fever and the hormonal chaos that had nearly consumed them both. How could they know? You said this place was hidden. It is. But you fell from a plane, Serafina. There are satellite tracking systems, radar signatures, debris patterns. If someone really wants to find where you landed, they can piece it together eventually. The thought sent ice through her veins. Then we need to leave. We will. But first, there are things you need to know. About what's really happening out here, and who your real enemies are. He moved to a section of the cave wall that looked like solid stone, pressing something hidden in the rock face. A panel slid aside, revealing a sophisticated communications setup, multiple radios, a satellite uplink, and what looked like encrypted messaging equipment. Impressive setup for a dead rogue, she observed. I've had 5 years to build it. Kai activated one of the radios, speaking in a code she didn't recognize. And I haven't been building it alone. The response came immediately, multiple voices checking in from various locations. Kai's network was larger than she'd imagined, and more organized. How many? She asked when he finished the communications check. 43 at last count. All exiles, all cast out by corrupt alphas for crimes they didn't commit or for standing up to injustice. His expression was grim. Your mate has made a lot of enemies over the years, Serafina. Not all of them are dead. She flinched at the word mate, and Kai noticed. Former mate, he corrected quietly. Sorry. It's fine. I need to get used to it. But the words still hurt. 5 years of marriage, reduced to a correction and an apology. What did you mean about my family? Kai's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. We've been monitoring pack communications since the news broke. Your family has been forbidden from holding any kind of memorial service for you. Dominic's orders. The news hit her like a physical blow. What? He claimed that public mourning would be disrespectful to the new Luna, and might cause political instability during the transition. Your parents, your sister, they've been ordered to grieve in private, if at all. Rage and heartbreak warred in her chest. He's erasing me. Like I never existed. That's exactly what he's doing. And according to our sources, it's working. The pack is already treating Isabella like she's always been their Luna. Like you were just a temporary placeholder. Serafina closed her eyes, fighting back tears she refused to shed. My sister Maya must be furious. She never liked Dominic, always said he was too political, too cold. Your sister is under house arrest. Her eyes snapped open. What? She tried to organize a vigil for you. Dominic had her detained for seditious behavior threatening pack unity. She's being held at her mate's pack until further notice. The betrayal cut even deeper than she'd thought possible. Dominic wasn't just destroying her, he was punishing anyone who dared to remember her with love. I need to contact her. Let her know I'm alive. Absolutely not. Kai's voice was firm. The moment you make contact with anyone from your old life, you compromise this location and everyone in it. Your family thinks you're dead, and for now, that keeps them safe. Safe from what? From being used as bait to draw you out. Or eliminated as loose ends if they ask too many questions about your accident. The casual way he discussed her family's potential murder made her stomach turn. You really think Dominic would kill my family? I think the man who threw his pregnant mate from a plane 30,000 feet up wouldn't hesitate to eliminate anyone who threatens his new narrative. Before she could respond, one of the radios crackled to life. The voice was female, urgent, and speaking in the same code Kai had used earlier. Kai's entire body went rigid. That's impossible, he breathed. What's wrong? He was already moving to the radio, his face pale. The voice. I know that voice. The transmission came again, clearer this time, and Serafina could hear the desperation in the unknown woman's tone. Kai, if you can hear this, I'm coming to you. I know about the pregnant Luna. I can help. Trust me, my love. It's really me. The radio fell silent, leaving them in stunned quiet. Who was that? Serafina asked, though something cold in her stomach already knew. Elena. Kai's voice was barely a whisper. That was Elena. She arrived 3 hours later, emerging from the forest like a ghost made flesh. Serafina watched from the cave entrance as Kai ran to meet the figure stumbling through the trees. Even from a distance, she could see the woman was beautiful, tall and elegant with long dark hair and the kind of ethereal grace that made men start wars. And when Kai swept her into his arms, spinning her around with a joy so pure it was painful to witness, Serafina felt something inside her chest shatter completely. She turned away before they could see her watching, retreating deeper into the cave as the sound of their reunion echoed off the stone walls. Laughter, tears, desperate endearments in a language she didn't recognize. The language of lovers reunited after believing each other dead. Serafina sank onto the bed, Kai's bed, where she'd been sleeping for days, and tried to process what was happening. The woman Kai had mourned for 5 years was alive. His mate, his true love, had returned to him. Which meant Serafina was exactly what she'd always feared, a temporary refuge, a charity case, a pregnant woman with nowhere else to go. The kiss they'd shared, the connection she'd felt growing between them, the way he'd looked at her when the fever broke, none of it had been real. Or if it was real, it was about to become irrelevant. Serafina? Kai's voice called from the cave entrance. I want you to meet someone. She forced herself to stand, to arrange her face into something resembling composure. When she emerged from the deeper sections of the cave, she found Kai standing beside the most beautiful woman she'd ever seen. Elena was everything Serafina wasn't, tall where she was average height, willowy where she was curvy, dark where she was fair. And she radiated a kind of wild sensuality that made it impossible to look away. This is Elena, Kai said, his arm around the other woman's waist in a gesture so natural it made Serafina's chest ache. Elena, this is Serafina. The famous Luna Serafina Blackthorn. Elena's smile was warm, but her dark eyes were calculating as they swept over Serafina's form. Though I suppose you're not much of a Luna anymore, are you? The words were delivered with such casual cruelty that it took Serafina a moment to process them. Excuse me? I just mean, with your mate moving on so quickly, you're really more of a, what's the term? Displaced person? Elena. Kai's voice held a warning note. I'm sorry, my love. I didn't mean to be insensitive. Elena's hand moved to Kai's chest in a gesture that was clearly proprietary. It's just such a shock to find another woman in our home. Our home. The words hit like physical blows. I'll go, Serafina said quietly. I can find somewhere else. Don't be ridiculous. Kai stepped forward, and for a moment she thought she saw genuine concern in his eyes. You're pregnant and still recovering. You're not going anywhere until it's safe. How noble of you, darling. Elena's smile was sharp as a blade. Taking in strays, just like always. This time Kai's warning look was more pronounced. Elena, that's enough. But the damage was done. Serafina had gotten the message loud and clear. She was an unwelcome intruder in a reunion 5 years in the making. How did you escape? Kai asked Elena, his voice gentler now. I saw Marcus kill you. I held your body. You held a body, Elena corrected. But not mine. I'd been expecting the attack. Marcus had been threatening me for weeks. So I arranged for a substitute, someone who looked enough like me to fool casual observation. A substitute? Serafina couldn't help asking. You mean another woman died in your place? Elena's shrug was elegant and unconcerned. A rogue female who'd been causing problems in the territory. Her death served a greater purpose. The casual dismissal of another woman's life made Serafina's skin crawl. And you let Kai take the blame? For 5 years? I had to. Elena moved closer to Kai, pressing against his side. If I'd revealed myself, Marcus would have just tried again. This way, I could stay hidden, gather intelligence, wait for the right moment to strike back. 5 years, Serafina repeated. You let the man you supposedly loved suffer in exile for 5 years while you gathered intelligence? Elena's eyes flashed dangerously. You have no idea what you're talking about, little Luna. The sacrifices we've made, the bigger picture we're fighting for. What bigger picture? Kai's voice was quiet, but Serafina could hear the edge in it. Elena, what have you been doing all this time? Surviving. Planning. Building alliances with the right people. Elena's smile was triumphant. I've been working with someone who can give us everything we want. Revenge against Marcus, your name cleared, our rightful place restored. Who? Serafina asked, though dread was already building in her chest. Alpha King Dominic, of course. Elena's smile widened at their shocked expressions. He's very interested in making amends for the injustice done to you, my love. Especially now that certain truths about his beta are coming to light. The cave fell silent except for the crackling of the fire. Serafina felt the world tilt sideways as the implications hit her. You're working with Dominic, she said slowly. I'm working with the man who can give us justice, Elena corrected. He wants Marcus eliminated as much as we do. And he's willing to pardon Kai completely in exchange for our help. And me? Serafina's voice was barely a whisper. What does he want in exchange for my life? Elena's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her dark eyes. He wants you to come home, of course. You're carrying his heir. That child belongs with its father. The father who tried to murder me. The father who was manipulated by his treacherous beta into making a terrible mistake. Elena's voice was smooth, reasonable. He's deeply sorry for what happened, Serafina. He wants to make amends. Kai had gone very still beside his returned mate. When did you make contact with Dominic? Does it matter? What matters is that we can finally have our lives back. Elena turned to face him fully. Don't you want that, my love? Don't you want to clear your name, reclaim your territory, make Marcus pay for what he did to us? Us? Kai's voice was carefully neutral. You weren't the one living in exile, Elena. You weren't the one branded a murderer and hunted like an animal. For the first time, Elena's perfect composure cracked slightly. I was protecting both of us. Everything I did was for us. Everything you did was for yourself. The words came out harsh, and Serafina could see Elena flinch. You let me believe you were dead. Let me carry that guilt, that rage, for 5 years while you played whatever game you thought would benefit you most. Kai. Get out. The words were quiet, but they carried the full force of an alpha's command. Elena took a step back, her face pale. You don't mean that. You're upset, confused. Once you've had time to think. I said get out. Kai's eyes had gone wolf bright. Leave. Now. Fine. Elena's mask of concern fell away, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. But you're making a mistake, Kai. Both of you. This is your chance to get your lives back, and you're throwing it away for what? Pride? She looked directly at Serafina. You think he cares about you? You're a pregnant reminder of another man's claim. The moment his real life calls, you'll be abandoned again. With that, she turned and stalked toward the cave entrance. But she paused at the threshold, looking back with a smile that made Serafina's blood run cold. Oh, and Serafina? You might want to avoid the soup I brought. I added some herbs to help with morning sickness, but I may have gotten the dosage wrong. Understanding hit like lightning. The soup. Serafina barely made it 2 steps before the cramping started. Sharp, vicious pain that doubled her over and sent her crashing to her knees. Kai, she gasped. But even as he rushed to her side, she could feel the wetness spreading between her legs, could smell the metallic scent of blood. The baby. Oh God, the baby. Elena's laughter echoed from outside the cave as the contractions began in earnest. Too early, too fast, too dangerous. No, Serafina sobbed, clutching her abdomen as Kai's hands tried to steady her. Please, no. Not the baby. But her body was already betraying her, responding to whatever poison Elena had slipped into her food. The child she'd fought so hard to protect was slipping away, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Through the haze of pain and terror, she heard Kai shouting for his medical supplies, heard him barking orders into his radio for help. But all she could think about was Elena's cold smile and the terrible realization that Dominic's reach had found her even here, in the one place she'd thought might be safe. The contractions were coming faster now, and Serafina knew with horrible certainty that this was exactly what Elena, and by extension, Dominic, had wanted all along. Not her return. Not reconciliation. The elimination of Dominic's inconvenient heir and the woman who carried it. Chapter 5. Blood. Too much blood. Kai knelt beside Serafina as another contraction tore through her, her back arching off the bed as she fought against the premature labor Elena's poison had triggered. Her face was pale as moonlight, slick with sweat, and her scent carried the copper tang of hemorrhaging. How far along? He demanded into his radio, trying to raise any of his network who might have medical training. 28 weeks, Serafina gasped between contractions. Too early. The baby won't survive. The baby will survive, Kai said fiercely, though privately he wasn't sure either of them would make it through the next hour. I won't let you lose this child. Kai. Elena's voice drifted from outside the cave, sickly sweet with false concern. Let me help. I have medical training. Get the hell away from here. Kai roared, not taking his eyes off Serafina. You've done enough. Don't be foolish, my love. She's going to die without proper intervention, and that baby with her. Is your pride really worth 2 lives? The worst part was that Elena was right. Serafina was bleeding heavily, the contractions coming too fast and too strong. Without a hospital, without trained medics, without even basic surgical equipment, the chances of survival were almost non-existent. But letting Elena anywhere near Serafina would be signing both their death warrants. There has to be another way, he muttered, rifling through his medical supplies for anything that might help. There is. Serafina's voice was weak but determined. My grandmother told me stories. Old pack magic, blood bonding. A mated pair can share strength, share life force. We're not mated. The words felt like glass in his throat. We could be. Her eyes met his, fierce despite the pain. If you're willing. Blood bonding was ancient magic, older than pack law, older than human civilization. It required complete trust, complete surrender of self to another. And once done, it couldn't be undone. Seraphina, you don't understand what you're asking. Blood bonding isn't just sharing strength, it's binding our souls together permanently. You'd be tied to me forever. I'm dying, Kai. The baby's dying. Another contraction hit, and she cried out in pain. Forever doesn't mean much if we don't survive the next hour. He could hear Elena moving around outside, probably setting up whatever trap Dominic had planned. Time was running out in every possible way. Tell me what to do, he said. Blade across both palms. Mix the blood. Speak the binding words while you place your hands on my womb. Seraphina's breath was coming in short pants. But Kai, once we do this, you'll feel everything I feel. The pain, the birth, all of it. I can handle pain. And if the baby doesn't make it, the baby will make it. He was already reaching for his knife. We both will. The blade was sharp, opening clean lines across both their palms. When their bleeding hands clasped together, Kai felt something electric pass between them, a recognition that went bone deep. By blood and moon, by earth and stone, Seraphina began, her voice growing stronger as his life force began to flow into her. What was two becomes one. By fire and wind, by star and sun, Kai continued, feeling the ancient words rise from some primal part of his memory. What was broken becomes whole. Their joined hands moved to her swollen belly, and the moment their blood touched her skin, everything changed. Kai gasped as Seraphina's pain slammed into him, not just the physical agony of premature labor, but the deeper anguish of a mother terrified of losing her child. He felt her determination, her fierce protective love, her absolute refusal to give up. And she felt his strength flow into her, 5 years of survival, of refusing to break under impossible pressure, of holding on to hope when hope was all he had left. It's working, she breathed, and he could see color returning to her cheeks. I can feel the baby stabilizing. The contractions were still coming, but they were more controlled now, less violent. Seraphina's body was drawing on Kai's strength, using his life force to sustain both her and the child. But as the labor progressed, Kai realized they weren't just sharing strength. Their minds were beginning to merge, barriers dissolving as the blood bond took hold. He could feel Seraphina's thoughts, her memories, her absolute trust in him. And she could feel his, including the truth about Elena that he'd been trying to deny. She was never your mate, Seraphina said softly, understanding flooding through their connection. The bond you thought you had, it was artificial. Created by magic, not true connection. Marcus, Kai realized, the pieces finally falling into place. He used a binding spell to make me believe I loved her. To control me through her. And when that stopped working, they staged her death to frame you. Seraphina's hand tightened on his. But this, what we have, this is real. The bond between them was indeed real, deeper and stronger than anything Kai had ever experienced. Through it, he could feel Seraphina's absolute certainty that they belonged together, that they always had. The baby's coming, she said, and Kai could feel the shift in her body as the final stage of labor began. Outside, Elena's voice rose in apparent distress. Kai. There are vehicles approaching. We need to leave now. Let them come, Kai growled, too focused on Seraphina to care about anything else. The birth was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. Through the bond, he felt every sensation as if it were his own, the pressure, the stretching, the moment when the baby's head crowned. And when their daughter finally slipped into the world, Kai felt the overwhelming rush of love that hit Seraphina like a tidal wave. A girl, Seraphina sobbed, cradling the tiny, perfect infant against her chest. She's so small, but she's breathing. She's... Kai's words died as he got his first clear look at their daughter. The baby was indeed small, but perfectly formed. And across her left shoulder, clearly visible even on her newborn skin, was a birthmark that made his blood run cold. A crescent moon surrounded by stars. The prophecy, he breathed. Every wolf knew the legend of the moon child, a pup born under specific conditions who would grow to unite all the scattered packs under one rule. The birthmark was supposedly one of the signs, along with unusual strength and the ability to command wolves from multiple bloodlines. What prophecy? Serafina asked, but even as she spoke, their daughter's eyes opened, revealing irises that shifted from blue to gold to silver in the firelight. She's the moon child, Kai said, wonder and terror warring in his voice. The one foretold to unite all packs under her rule. Through their bond, he felt Serafina's understanding, and her immediate, protective fear. That's why Elena wanted her. That's why Dominic. Every alpha in North America will want to control her, Kai finished grimly. Or kill her before she can fulfill the prophecy. Then we protect her. Serafina's voice was fierce, maternal instinct overriding everything else. Whatever it takes. Touching scene, Elena's voice came from the cave entrance, and they both spun to see her standing there with a tranquilizer gun aimed at Serafina. But I'm afraid playtime is over. How long have you been standing there? Kai demanded, moving to shield Serafina and the baby. Long enough to confirm what I suspected. The birthmark, the eyes, she's everything the prophecy promised. Elena's smile was cold and calculating. Dominic will be so pleased. A moon child under his control will make him the most powerful alpha in history. Over my dead body, Serafina snarled, and Kai felt her wolf rising through their bond. That can be arranged. Elena adjusted her aim. Though Dominic would prefer you alive. Barely. Why? Kai stepped closer, using his body to block Elena's line of sight to the baby. Why betray everything we had? Why work with the people who destroyed our lives? Because you never understood the bigger picture, my love. Elena's expression was almost pitying. Power is the only thing that matters. Dominic offered me a place at his side when he rules all the packs. What could you offer? A life in exile, scraping by in caves and hiding from our enemies? I could offer you my heart, Kai said quietly. But you never wanted that, did you? You wanted the power that came with my territory, my bloodline. When Marcus offered you more, you took it. I took what I deserved. Elena's mask was slipping, revealing the ambitious predator underneath. And now I'm taking what Dominic deserves. The moon child will serve the rightful alpha king. She fired the tranquilizer dart, but Kai was already moving. The dart meant for Serafina struck him in the shoulder instead, and he felt the drug begin to work immediately. Kai! Serafina's scream echoed through their bond as he staggered. Take the baby and run, he ordered, fighting the sedative. There's a passage in the back of the cave. It leads to... Elena fired again, this time catching him in the chest. As he collapsed, he saw her advancing on Serafina, who was clutching their daughter protectively. Don't make this harder than it has to be, Elena said, reaching for the baby. The child comes with me either way. But as her hands closed around the infant, something extraordinary happened. The baby's eyes flared silver, and every wolf within a mile radius felt the pulse of power that emanated from her tiny form. Elena jerked back as if burned. What? The moon child's cry was unlike anything Kai had ever heard, not the wail of a normal infant, but something that resonated on a frequency that spoke directly to wolf souls. And through their bond, he felt Serafina's response to that call. She changed. Not the controlled shift most wolves managed, but something primal and explosive. Her wolf form was magnificent, silver fur that seemed to glow in the firelight, eyes like molten gold, and a presence that radiated maternal fury. Elena barely had time to scream before Serafina's jaws closed around her throat. The fight was swift and brutal. Elena was larger and had more combat experience, but she was facing a bonded female protecting her newborn. There was no force in nature more dangerous. When it was over, Elena lay motionless on the cave floor, her neck twisted at an unnatural angle. Serafina shifted back, human again, and immediately reached for their daughter. Is she hurt? Did Elena She's fine, Kai managed, the tranquilizer making his words slur. You saved her. But even as relief flooded through him, he heard the sound that made his blood freeze: helicopters, multiple aircraft, getting closer. Elena's communication device, he realized, spotting the small transmitter clipped to the dead woman's belt. She was broadcasting our location. Serafina followed his gaze and understood immediately. How long do we have? Minutes, maybe less. Kai forced himself to stand, fighting the drug in his system. The back passage, it leads to a series of caves that connect to the old mining tunnels. If we can reach them. What about your network? Can they help? They're scattered, and this place will be swarming with Dominic's people soon. He grabbed essential supplies with hands that felt clumsy and distant. We're on our own. Through their bond, he felt Serafina's fear, not for herself, but for their daughter. The tiny girl who had already become the most hunted being in the supernatural world. She's not even an hour old, Serafina whispered, pressing a kiss to the baby's forehead. And already they want to use her or kill her. Then we make sure they never get the chance. Kai gathered Serafina in his arms, carrying both her and the baby toward the hidden passage. We disappear completely. Change our names, our scents, everything. Live as humans if we have to. For how long? The sound of rotors was getting louder, and Kai could hear vehicles in the distance. As long as it takes, he said grimly, sealing the hidden panel behind them as they entered the escape tunnel. Until she's old enough to claim her birthright, or until we find a way to end this war once and for all. Behind them, the cave that had been their sanctuary filled with the sound of boots and shouted orders. Dominic's hunters had found their lair, but they were too late. The Moonchild and her protectors had already vanished into the darkness, beginning a flight that would either end in their destruction or in the fulfillment of a prophecy that would reshape the supernatural world forever. As they moved through the ancient tunnels, Kai felt their daughter's small hand wrap around his finger with surprising strength. Through the bond, he sensed Serafina's fierce determination, her absolute refusal to let anyone harm their child. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The blood bond had made them true mates, and their daughter had made them something more, the family that would either save or destroy everything they'd ever known. Behind them, Elena's body lay cooling in the abandoned cave, a testament to what happened to those who threatened the Moonchild's protectors. The hunt had begun in earnest. Chapter 6. The mining tunnels had seemed like salvation until the explosions started. Kai felt each blast through the rock above them, dust and debris raining down as Dominic's forces systematically destroyed every exit they could find. Their daughter whimpered against Serafina's chest, somehow sensing the danger even at only hours old. They're sealing us in, Serafina said, her voice tight with controlled panic. No. Kai's jaw was set in grim determination. They're herding us toward the main entrance. Dominic wants a confrontation. Through their blood bond, he felt Serafina's fear spike, not for herself, but for their child. The Moonchild who had already become the center of a war she was too young to understand. Maybe I should go to him, she said quietly. If I surrender myself? Absolutely not. Kai's response was immediate and fierce. You heard what Elena said. Dominic wants you executed for faking your death. The only reason he'd take you alive is to make an example. But if it keeps her safe. It won't. The moment he has you, he'll take the baby and eliminate any witnesses to his crimes. Including us. Another explosion, closer this time, and their daughter's cries grew more distressed. Serafina pressed her closer, humming softly to calm her. Then what do we do? Kai studied the tunnel map he'd memorized years ago. We make our stand at the main entrance. It's the most defensible position, and... He paused, hating what he was about to suggest. And if necessary, one of us can hold them off while the other escapes with the baby. No. Serafina's voice was steel. We stay together. All of us. Serafina. I said no, Kai. I'm not losing you hours after finding you. Her golden eyes blazed with determination. We're bonded now. That means we fight together or we fall together. The fierceness in her voice, the absolute certainty, made something in Kai's chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. Love, maybe. Or recognition of a partnership that went deeper than blood bonds. Together then, he agreed, checking his weapons one final time. They made their way through the tunnels as quietly as possible, but Kai knew stealth was pointless now. Dominic would have thermal imaging, scent trackers, every piece of technology money could buy. The only advantage they had was the narrow choke point of the tunnel entrance. That, and the element of surprise. Dominic thought he was hunting a rogue wolf and a traumatized female. He had no idea what the blood bond had created. The tunnel opened into a natural cavern that connected to the surface through a crack in the mountainside. Dawn light filtered down, painting everything in shades of gray and gold. It would have been beautiful under other circumstances. Now it felt like walking into their own tomb. Movement outside, Kai said, his enhanced hearing picking up the subtle sounds of multiple heartbeats, carefully controlled breathing, the soft scrape of weapons being readied. How many? 20, maybe 25. Full war party. Kai positioned himself where he could see the entrance while still providing cover for Serafina and the baby. Dominic's not taking any chances. Kai's shadow moon. The voice that echoed down into the cavern was rich, commanding, and filled with barely controlled rage. I know you're down there. Come out and face justice for your crimes. Justice? Kai called back. Rich words from a man who threw his pregnant mate from a plane. My mate is dead. Dominic's roar reverberated off the stone walls. Killed by your accomplice. And you have stolen my heir. Your heir? Serafina's voice was deadly quiet as she spoke, just loud enough for her words to carry. How convenient that you care about your heir now, Dominic. Where was that concern when you were throwing me to my death? The silence that followed was deafening. Serafina? Dominic's voice was different now, shocked, hopeful, and something else. Something that sounded almost like relief. You're alive? No thanks to you. The report said you were dead. Elena confirmed, his voice broke off as understanding dawned. That bitch. She lied to me. About a lot of things, apparently. Serafina shifted their daughter to her other arm, keeping her voice steady despite the emotion Kai could feel pouring through their bond. Did you really think I would cheat on you, Dominic? After 5 years together? I was told you'd been seen with another male. Elena had photographs, witness statements. All lies. Just like everything else Marcus fed you. Another silence, longer this time. When Dominic spoke again, his voice was strained. Marcus? What does my beta have to do with this? Everything, Kai said, stepping where Dominic could see him at the cavern entrance. He's been playing you for years, Dominic. Manipulating you, poisoning your mind against anyone who might threaten his influence. Dominic appeared at the cave entrance, and Kai was shocked by what he saw. The Alpha King looked like hell, thinner than he should be, his skin slightly gray, his eyes bloodshot. The confident, powerful leader Kai remembered had been replaced by someone who looked like he was fighting a losing battle with exhaustion. You're one to talk about poison, murderer, Dominic snarled, but there was less conviction in it than before. I didn't kill Elena, Kai said quietly. She was already dead when I found her. Killed by Marcus because she threatened to expose his plan to claim her for himself. Lies. Are they? When was the last time you felt truly strong, Dominic? When did the headache start? The fatigue? The difficulty concentrating? Dominic's face went pale, and Kai knew his guess had been correct. Wolfsbane, Serafina breathed, understanding flooding through their bond. He's been poisoning you with Wolfsbane. That's impossible. Marcus has been my most loyal. Dom. A woman's voice called from outside, and Kai recognized the saccharine sweetness of Isabella. Dom, you need to see this. I found something in Marcus's quarters. Isabella appeared beside Dominic, her blonde hair disheveled and her face flushed with what looked like terror. In her hands was a small glass vial filled with a clear liquid. "Concentrated wolfsbane extract," she said, her voice shaking. "I found dozens of these in his room, along with injection devices and files about you. Medical records, psychological profiles, plans for..." She stopped, swallowing hard. "Plans for your assassination." Dominic stared at the vial like it was a snake. "That's not possible. Marcus has been with me for 10 years. 10 years of slowly weakening you," Kai said. "Making you more susceptible to suggestion, more paranoid, more likely to make the kind of mistakes that would destroy your pack from within. Like throwing away your true mate for a human woman," Serafina added, and Isabella flinched as if she'd been slapped. "I'm pregnant too," Isabella said quietly, one hand moving to her still flat stomach. "But Marcus told me, he said the baby would make me Dominic's true mate. That the bond would override everything else." "Another lie," Kai said grimly. "You can't create a true mate bond artificially. The baby would just make you a permanent mistress." Isabella's face crumpled. "He said you were evil, Dom. That you were being controlled by your mate, that she was planning to kill you and take over the pack. He said if I could just get you away from her." "You thought you were saving him," Serafina realized. "Marcus manipulated you too." "We've all been played," Dominic said slowly, the pieces finally falling into place. "Marcus wanted me weak, isolated, making enemies I couldn't afford to make. He wanted chaos. Because chaos creates opportunity," a new voice said from the cavern entrance. "And opportunity creates power." Marcus stepped into view, flanked by a dozen wolves Kai didn't recognize. Not pack members, rogues, mercenaries, wolves whose loyalty belonged to whoever paid the most. "Hello, my old friend," Marcus said to Dominic, his smile cold and predatory. "I was wondering when you'd finally figure it out." Dominic spun to face his former beta, and Kai saw the exact moment when the Alpha King realized how thoroughly he'd been betrayed. 10 years, Dominic whispered. 10 years you've been planning this. Longer, actually. I've been cultivating contacts, building alliances, gathering resources. All while you played at being the noble leader. Marcus's expression was contemptuous. "You were always too soft, Dominic. Too concerned with honor and tradition to see the bigger picture." "The bigger picture being your own ambition?" "The bigger picture being power for those strong enough to take it." Marcus nodded toward the wolves behind him. "I've promised them territories of their own when I control all the packs. No more hiding, no more living by human laws. Open warfare until we're the dominant species on this continent." "You're talking about genocide," Serafina said, horror flooding through her voice. "I'm talking about evolution. Survival of the fittest." Marcus's gaze fixed on the bundle in her arms. "Starting with the Moon Child. She'll make a perfect figurehead for the new order, once she's properly trained, of course." "Over my dead body," Kai snarled, moving to block Marcus's view of the baby. "That can be arranged." Marcus signaled to his mercenaries, who began spreading out to surround the cavern entrance. "Though I'd prefer to keep the mother alive for breeding purposes. Luna Serafina's bloodline would strengthen any Alpha's heir." The casual way he discussed her future as a broodmare made Kai see red. His wolf rose to the surface, ready to tear Marcus apart with his bare hands. But Dominic beat him to it. The Alpha King's transformation was explosive, years of suppressed rage and betrayal channeling into his wolf form. Even weakened by wolfsbane, he was still a formidable opponent, and Marcus barely managed to shift in time to meet his attack. The two wolves crashed together in a fury of teeth and claws, their snarls echoing off the cavern walls. The mercenaries started forward, but Isabella's voice stopped them. "This is challenge combat," she shouted, understanding pack law even as a human. "No interference allowed." The mercenaries hesitated, and in that moment of uncertainty, Kai made his move. He shifted mid-leap, his wolf form sailing over the fighting alphas to land among Marcus's followers. The narrow cavern entrance worked in his favor, they couldn't all attack at once, and his years of survival fighting had made him efficient, deadly. Behind him, He heard Seraphina's voice raised in the ancient battle song of her bloodline, calling on the strength of her ancestors to protect their young. Through their bond, he felt her power flowing into him, making him faster, stronger, more focused than he'd ever been. The fight was brutal but brief. Marcus's mercenaries were skilled, but they were fighting for money. Kai was fighting for his family. When the last of them fell, Kai turned back to see Dominic and Marcus locked in what would be their final confrontation. Both wolves were bloody, exhausted, but neither was backing down. Dominic. Isabella's scream made everyone freeze. Marcus had Dominic pinned, his jaws closing around the Alpha King's throat. But as his teeth sank in, something unexpected happened. Isabella threw herself forward, not to help Dominic, but to place herself between him and Marcus's finishing blow. The rogue's teeth tore into her shoulder instead of Dominic's throat, and her human scream of pain echoed through the cavern. No. Dominic's anguish was raw, primal. Whether he loved Isabella or not, she was carrying his child, and she just sacrificed herself to save him. The distraction was enough. Dominic's counterstrike caught Marcus in the throat, and this time there was no recovery. Marcus fell, his wolf form shifting back to human as he died. His eyes found Dominic's one last time, and his final words were a whisper of pure hatred. It won't matter. I've already won. The council will never accept you now, not after everything you've done. The packs will tear each other apart, and from the ashes, someone stronger will rise. Then he was gone, and the cavern fell silent except for Isabella's labored breathing. Dominic shifted back to human form, cradling the wounded woman in his arms. Why? He asked her. After everything I put you through, why did you save me? Because Marcus was right about one thing, Isabella said weakly. You're too good for this world, Dom, too noble. Someone needs to protect that. She looked past him to where Seraphina stood with their daughter, and her smile was sad but genuine. Take care of him. He needs someone who can be strong when he can't. With that, Isabella closed her eyes and went still. The silence stretched until their daughter's cry broke it, not distressed this time, but demanding. Hungry. Impatient with the adult drama that had kept her from her first real meal. She needs to feed, Seraphina said quietly. Dominic looked up from Isabella's body, his face ravaged with grief and confusion. Seraphina, I know. Her voice was gentle but firm. But that conversation will have to wait. We have more immediate problems. Through the cavern entrance, they could hear vehicles approaching. Multiple engines, heavy equipment. The council, Dominic said grimly. Marcus was right about one thing, they'll never let me explain. Not after the mess I've made. Then we don't give them the chance, Kai said, moving to Seraphina's side. There are other exits from these caves, routes that lead deeper into the mountains. Where will you go? Dominic asked. Kai and Seraphina exchanged a look through their bond. They both knew the answer, though neither wanted to voice it. Away, Seraphina said finally. Far enough that the moon child can grow up safe from anyone who would use her. Including me? Dominic's voice was barely a whisper. Especially you. Seraphina's words were kind but unyielding. You made your choice, Dominic. You chose to believe lies over trusting your mate. You chose another woman over your child. You chose politics over family. I was poisoned. Manipulated. You were. But you still made those choices. And now I have to make mine. She turned toward the deeper tunnels, but Dominic's voice stopped her. What do I tell them? The council, the pack? How do I explain any of this? Seraphina looked back one last time, and Kai saw the ghost of the woman she'd been, the Luna who had stood beside this man for 5 years, who had loved him despite his flaws. Tell them the truth, she said. Tell them Alpha King Dominic Blackthorn died in this cave along with his treacherous beta. What emerges from this mountain will have to be someone new. And with that, she disappeared into the darkness of the tunnels, carrying the moon child toward an uncertain future. Kai paused at the threshold, looking back at the broken Alpha King surrounded by the bodies of his enemies and allies alike. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I'm sorry for your loss. All of them." Then he too vanished into the tunnels, following his mate and their daughter toward whatever destiny awaited them in the world beyond. Behind them, Dominic knelt alone among the dead, holding Isabella's cooling body as the sound of council vehicles grew closer. Marcus's final prophecy echoed in the silence. From the ashes, someone stronger will rise. The question was, who would that someone be? Chapter 7. The abandoned mining town of Shadowvale had been dead for 30 years, but in the 3 weeks since Kai had called his network together, it had become very much alive. Serafina stood at the window of what had once been the town's general store, watching wolves move through the streets below with purpose and determination. 43 had become 67 as word spread through the supernatural underground. Marcus's reign of terror had created more exiles than anyone had imagined. "She's getting stronger," Isabella said from behind her, and Serafina turned to see the blonde woman watching their daughter with a mixture of wonder and concern. 3 weeks old, and Luna, they'd finally settled on the name, was already showing abilities that defied everything they knew about wolf development. Her eyes tracked movement with an intelligence that seemed impossible for an infant, and twice now she'd stopped crying wolves from fighting simply by making small sounds of distress. "Too strong, too fast," Serafina murmured, adjusting Luna in her arms. Yesterday she grabbed Jake's hand when he was bleeding from training, and the wound closed completely. "Healing touch," Isabella said quietly. "Just like the prophecy predicted." The prophecy. Serafina was getting tired of that word. Every ancient text they'd managed to gather spoke of the Moon Child's abilities, but none of them mentioned the cost of wielding such power so young. Luna slept more than a normal baby, ate less, and sometimes seemed to stare at things no one else could see. "Any word from the scouts?" Serafina asked, trying to push away her maternal worries. 3 more packs destroyed in the last week. Same pattern. Trusted beta suddenly goes rogue, kills the alpha and his family, then disappears into the wilderness. Isabella's face was grim. Marcus isn't just building an army. He's eliminating every leader who might oppose him. The door opened and Kai entered, his expression dark. Behind him came Jake Morrison, the former beta whose alpha had been murdered by his own enforcer, and Sarah Chin, whose entire pack had been slaughtered by wolves they'd trusted for years. "Council meeting in an hour," Kai announced. "We've confirmed it. Marcus is calling an emergency session of the Alpha Council, claiming Dominic was killed by rogue wolves and that immediate action is needed to prevent total pack warfare." He's making his play, Serafina realized. Force the remaining alphas to choose, submit to his leadership or be branded rogues themselves. "It's brilliant," in a psychotic way, Jake said bitterly. "Create the crisis, then position yourself as the only solution." "The summit is in 5 days," Sarah added. "Every surviving alpha will be there, along with their betas and security details. If Marcus has them all in one place." "Massacre," Kai finished grimly. "He kills anyone who won't bow to him and claims the survivors chose him as the new high alpha." Serafina felt Luna shift restlessly in her arms, the baby somehow sensing the tension in the room. Immediately, the oppressive atmosphere lightened slightly, not enough to be obvious, but enough that everyone unconsciously relaxed. "We have to stop him," Isabella said, though her voice lacked conviction. "But how? Even with all our people, we're outnumbered 10-1. "We infiltrate the summit," Kai said. "Get inside before Marcus makes his move, warn the loyal alphas, and..." "And what?" Jake interrupted. "Even if they believe us, Marcus will have prepared for resistance. He's been planning this for years." "There's something else," Sarah said reluctantly. "Something the scouts discovered that you're not going to like." She pulled out a tablet, showing grainy surveillance footage from one of the destroyed pack territories. The images showed wolves moving through the forest, but something was wrong with them. Their movements were too mechanical, too uniform. "Rogues?" Serafina asked. "We thought so at first. But look at their eyes." Sarah zoomed in on one of the figures, and Serafina's blood ran cold. The wolf's eyes were completely white, no iris, no pupil, just blank, milky orbs. They're not rogues, Kai said, his voice deadly quiet. There's something else entirely. Dark magic, Isabella whispered, and everyone turned to stare at her. I've seen this before. In Marcus's private study, he had books, old books about blood magic and spirit binding. You were in his private study? Jake's voice was suspicious. Isabella's face flushed, but she met his gaze steadily. Yes. Because I was supposed to be spying for him. The room fell silent. Luna made a small sound, and again that strange calming effect washed over them, preventing the immediate explosion of anger and accusations. Explain, Kai said, his voice carefully controlled. Marcus recruited me 2 years ago. Told me Dominic was planning to purge all human-born wolves from the packs, that he needed someone close to the Alpha King to prevent genocide. Isabella's hands shook as she spoke. He said if I could get close to Dominic, make him fall in love with me, I could influence his decisions. Save thousands of lives. And you believed him? Sarah's voice was harsh. I was 19, alone, and terrified. My pack had just been slaughtered by human hunters, and Marcus offered me purpose, protection, a chance for revenge. Isabella's voice broke slightly. I didn't know he was the one orchestrating the attacks. I thought I was saving people. But you fell in love with Dominic for real, Serafina said, understanding flooding through her. Yes. Which made everything so much worse. The man Marcus described, cold, calculating, ruthless, that wasn't who Dominic was. He was lonely, grieving for a mate who'd grown distant, trying to hold together a fractured political system while dealing with constant attacks on his pack. Isabella wiped tears from her eyes. I tried to tell Marcus I was wrong about Dominic, that he wasn't the monster we thought. That's when Marcus told me about the pregnancy. The pregnancy? Kai's voice was sharp. Isabella's hand moved to her still flat stomach, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. It's not Dominic's child. It's Marcus's. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Luna seemed to sense the shift in the room, making small, distressed sounds. He drugged me, Isabella continued, the words coming out in a rush. 3 months ago, during one of our meetings. I woke up in his bed with no memory of how I got there. When I missed my cycle, he told me it was proof of my dedication to the cause. Said the child would give me permanent leverage over Dominic. Son of a bitch, Jake snarled. When did you realize what he really was? Serafina asked, surprising herself with how gentle her voice was. When I saw him kill Dominic's enforcer. The man had been asking questions about the attacks on border packs, getting too close to the truth. Marcus didn't just kill him, he enjoyed it. And afterwards, he started talking about what would happen after Dominic was gone. About the new world order he was going to create. Isabella shuddered. That's when I knew I'd been used by a monster. And the child? Kai asked. I won't let Marcus claim this baby. Whatever it takes. Isabella's voice was fierce now, maternal instinct overriding everything else. I know I don't have any right to ask for your help, but... You have it, Serafina said firmly, ignoring the surprised looks from the others. No child should pay for their father's sins. Through their bond, she felt Kai's agreement, though she could also sense his tactical mind working. The baby could be useful, he said quietly. If Marcus thinks his child died with you, he won't be expecting a potential weakness. There's more, Isabella said. The books in his study, they described a ritual called the Binding of Souls. It's how he's creating those blank-eyed wolves. He's ripping the souls from captured rogues and replacing them with fragments of his own consciousness. Creating a hive mind, Sarah breathed. An army that thinks like he does, follows his every command without question. How many? Kai asked. I saw logistics reports planning for 500. But that was months ago. By now. Isabella shrugged helplessly. We're not just fighting Marcus, Serafina realized. We're fighting an army of mindless extensions of his will. Luna chose that moment to reach out with one tiny hand, grasping Serafina's finger with surprising strength. The moment their skin touched, images flashed through Serafina's mind, brief, confusing glimpses of wolves with white eyes, a man laughing as he carved symbols into stone, and something else. Something that made her gasp. What is it? Kai was beside her instantly, his hand on her shoulder. She showed me something. Marcus, he's not just planning to kill the alphas at the summit. He's planning to bind their souls too. Turn them into vessels for his consciousness. All of them? Jake's voice was hollow. Every alpha in North America. He wants to control all the packs directly, through bodies that used to be their leaders. The implications were staggering. Marcus wouldn't just be high alpha, he would literally be every alpha, a supernatural dictator with absolute control over hundreds of thousands of wolves. Then we stop him, Kai said simply. How? Sarah demanded. Even if we could get inside the summit, even if we could convince the alphas to listen to us, how do we fight 500 mindless soldiers and whatever other magic Marcus has prepared? Kai looked down at Luna, who was watching him with those impossible eyes that seemed to see everything. We use the one advantage Marcus doesn't know we have. The moon child, Serafina said, understanding and horror warring in her voice. You want to use our baby as a weapon. I want to use our daughter's gift to save every wolf in North America, Kai corrected. The prophecy says she can unite all packs under her rule. What if that doesn't just mean politics? What if she can actually break the soul bindings, free the wolves Marcus has enslaved? She's 3 weeks old, Kai. I won't risk her life for. You won't have to. Isabella's voice was quiet but determined. Marcus expects me to be there, at the summit. I'm supposed to stand beside him when he makes his announcement, pregnant with his heir. If I can get close enough to the binding apparatus. You'll be killed, Jake said bluntly. Probably. But if I can disrupt the ritual even for a few minutes, give you an opening. No. Serafina's voice was firm. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for our fight. It's not your fight anymore, Isabella said softly. It's everyone's. And this baby I'm carrying, if Marcus gets his hands on it, he'll have another moon child to corrupt. Another weapon to use against innocent people. The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. Marcus with 2 prophesied children, one bound to his will from birth, it would be the end of any hope for freedom. There might be another way, Sarah said slowly. The summit is being held at Moonrise Mountain, right? The old ceremonial grounds? Yes, Kai confirmed. Why? Because those grounds are sacred to the moon goddess. Legend says no dark magic can permanently hold there. If we could get Luna to the heart of the ceremonial circle during the new moon, her power would be amplified, Serafina finished, understanding dawning. But the new moon is tomorrow night. And the summit doesn't start for 4 more days. Then we change the timeline, Kai said. We go in early, secure the ceremonial grounds, and force Marcus to come to us. That's suicide, Jake protested. We'll be outnumbered 100 to 1. Maybe. But we'll be fighting on sacred ground, with the moon child's power at its peak. Kai looked around the room. Sometimes the impossible is the only option left. Luna made a soft sound, almost like agreement, and once again that preternatural calm settled over the room. But this time, Serafina felt something else through their connection, determination. Purpose. As if her 3-week-old daughter understood exactly what was being asked of her. If we're doing this, Serafina said slowly, we do it right. No half measures, no backup plans. We end Marcus tomorrow night, or we all die trying. Together, Isabella said, her hand moving to her stomach. Together, the others echoed. Kai moved to the window, looking out at the wolves who had chosen to follow them into what might be their final battle. I'll send word to the others. We move at sunset. But as the others filed out to make preparations, Kai lingered. When they were alone except for Luna, he turned to face Serafina with an expression she'd never seen before, vulnerable, hopeful, and terrified all at once. "There's something I need to ask you," he said quietly. "Before we do this. Before we face whatever's coming." Serafina felt her heart skip. "Kai. I know the timing is terrible. I know we're probably going to die tomorrow. But I can't face that possibility without you knowing." He dropped to one knee, pulling a simple silver ring from his pocket. "It was my grandmother's. She said it would know when it found the right woman." Tears pricked Serafina's eyes. "You want to propose? Now? I want to make you my Luna. Properly. Before our daughter grows up thinking her parents were just two wolves who happened to be bonded by blood magic." His smile was shaky but genuine. "I love you, Serafina. Not because of the bond, not because of circumstances, but because you're the strongest, most beautiful, most incredible woman I've ever known. Will you marry me?" Luna gurgled happily in her arms, as if approving of the proposal. "Yes," Serafina whispered, then louder, "Yes, you impossible, wonderful man. Of course I'll marry you." Kai slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, just as he'd promised, then stood to kiss her with a gentleness that belied the desperation of their situation. When they broke apart, Luna was watching them with those ancient eyes, and for a moment Serafina could swear she saw approval there. As if their daughter knew that love, real love, was going to be the key to everything that came next. Tomorrow they would face Marcus and his army of the soulless. Tomorrow they would discover whether the Moon Child's power was strong enough to break chains forged in blood and darkness. But tonight, they were simply a family. A new pack of three, bound by love rather than fear. And sometimes, Serafina thought as she held her daughter and her fiancé close, love was the strongest magic of all. Chapter 8. The sacred ceremonial grounds of Moonrise Mountain had been carved into the living rock by ancient wolves, shaped by claws and blessed by countless generations of pack leaders. Under normal circumstances, the natural amphitheater would have been filled with the formal pageantry of the annual pack summit. Tonight, it was a battlefield. Serafina pressed her back against the carved stone altar at the center of the circle, Luna sleeping peacefully in her arms despite the chaos erupting around them. The baby seemed completely unaffected by the snarls, howls, and clash of supernatural bodies fighting for their very survival. "How many?" Kai asked, appearing beside her with blood on his claws and determination in his eyes. 200 of the soulless, maybe more. Serafina tried to keep her voice steady as she watched their small force of 67 exiled wolves fighting against Marcus's mindless army. They just keep coming. The artificial rogues were terrifying in their uniformity. They moved as one entity, felt no pain, showed no fear. When one fell, two more took its place, their blank white eyes reflecting nothing but Marcus's twisted will. "The other alphas?" Serafina asked. "Barricaded in the main lodge with their betas. They think this is just another rogue attack." Kai's expression was grim. "Marcus is letting us tire ourselves out before he makes his grand entrance. Then we need to change the game." Serafina looked down at Luna, who had opened her eyes and was staring up at her with that unnerving intelligence. "She's been trying to tell me something all day. I think she knows what she needs to do." Through their bond, Kai felt her certainty mixed with maternal terror. "What are you thinking?" "The barrier spell I've been unconsciously casting. It's not just protective. Luna's been amplifying it, but she's been holding back. I think she's waiting for the right moment." A commotion near the eastern entrance made them both turn. Marcus had arrived. He strode into the ceremonial circle like a conqueror claiming his throne, flanked by dozens more artificial rogues. But it was the figure beside him that made Serafina's blood run cold. Dominic. Or what had been Dominic? The former Alpha King moved with the same mechanical precision as the other soulless, his once proud bearing reduced to that of a puppet. But his eyes were the worst part. Still amber, still recognizably his, but with an awareness trapped behind them that spoke of unimaginable horror. "My dear Serafina," Marcus called out, his voice carrying across the battlefield with supernatural clarity. Still clinging to your lost cause, I see. And with my old friend Kai, no less. How touching. You bastard, Kai snarled, taking a step forward. What did you do to him? I gave him what he always wanted, the chance to serve a worthy leader. Marcus's smile was cold as winter. Though I admit, breaking his will took longer than expected. Something about true love and honor. Tiresome concepts, really. Isabella appeared at the edge of the circle, having worked her way through the fighting. Her clothes were torn and bloody, but her eyes were fierce with determination. Hello, Marcus, she called out. Miss me? Marcus's attention snapped to her, and for the first time, his composure cracked. Isabella. You should be dead. Disappointed? You shouldn't be, after all, I'm carrying your heir. Surely that's worth something to the future High Alpha. You're lying. But uncertainty flickered in Marcus's eyes. The report said you died with Dominic. Reports can be wrong. Just like everything else you based your grand plan on. Isabella moved closer, one hand protectively over her stomach. Did you really think I'd stay loyal to a monster who drugged and raped me? Who murdered the man I actually loved? Love. Marcus spat the word like a curse. Another weakness I'll breed out of the new order. You'll breed nothing, Serafina said, standing and shifting Luna to one arm. Your reign ends tonight. With what army? Marcus gestured to the artificial rogues surrounding them. You're outnumbered 5-1, fighting creatures that feel no pain and know no fear. Even if you could somehow defeat them all, you'd be too exhausted to face me. You're right, Serafina agreed. We can't defeat them all. Luna made a soft sound, and suddenly every artificial rogue in the circle stopped moving. But she can. The change was subtle at first, just a slight turning of heads, a hesitation in the mechanical movements. But then the barrier that had been protecting the innocent pack members began to expand, flowing outward like a tide of silver light. Where the light touched the artificial rogues, something extraordinary happened. The blank whiteness in their eyes began to clear, revealing the trapped souls beneath. What? Marcus started forward, alarm replacing confidence. That's impossible. The binding can't be broken. You're right, Kai said, moving to stand beside Serafina. It can't be broken. But it can be overwritten. Through their bond, Serafina felt Luna's power flowing through her, amplified by the sacred ground and the new moon overhead. But this wasn't just raw magical force, it was something deeper. Something that spoke to the fundamental nature of what it meant to be pack. The artificial rogues were beginning to remember who they'd been before Marcus stole their souls. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the return of their own consciousness. Others looked around in confusion, trying to understand where they were and why they were fighting. No. Marcus's roar echoed off the stone walls. They belong to me. I created them. You enslaved them, Serafina corrected, her voice carrying across the battlefield with Luna's power behind it. But slavery isn't creation. And it isn't pack. The first of the freed rogues turned toward Marcus, recognition and rage burning in eyes that were no longer blank. Then another. Then a dozen. You remember now, don't you? Isabella called out to them. You remember who stole your lives, your families, your futures. Marcus tried to reassert control, his voice taking on the supernatural command of an alpha. But Luna's power was stronger, and the freed wolves were no longer bound to his will. The battle that followed was swift and terrible. Marcus fought like a cornered animal, his enhanced strength and speed making him a formidable opponent. But he was facing not just Kai and Serafina, but dozens of wolves whose souls he had violated. In the end, it was Dominic who delivered the killing blow. The former Alpha King broke free of Marcus's control at the crucial moment, his own will finally overcoming the magical bonds. His claws opened Marcus's throat with surgical precision, and the would-be tyrant fell to the sacred stone, his blood seeping into carvings that had witnessed centuries of pack justice. As Marcus died, the last of his artificial army collapsed, the dark magic finally broken completely. The sudden silence was deafening after hours of battle. "Is it over?" Isabella asked, swaying on her feet. "It's over," Kai confirmed, gathering Serafina and Luna in his arms. Dominic stood over Marcus's body, his face a mask of grief and relief. When he looked up, his eyes found Serafina's across the circle. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "For everything." "I know," she replied, her voice gentle. "And I forgive you." The sound of approaching footsteps made them all turn. The surviving alphas were emerging from the lodge, their faces stunned as they took in the scene, the bodies of the artificial rogues, Marcus's corpse, and the small group of exiled wolves who had somehow saved them all. "What happened here?" Alpha Morrison of the Northwest Territory demanded. "Justice," Dominic said quietly. "Long overdue justice." The emergency council session lasted 3 days. By the time it was over, the entire structure of pack leadership had been revolutionized. The position of Alpha King was abolished, replaced by a rotating council system that would prevent any single wolf from accumulating too much power. Kai was offered full redemption and a place of honor in the new system. To everyone's surprise, he turned it down. "I've seen what centralized power does," he told the assembled alphas. "Even with the best intentions, it corrupts. What the supernatural world needs isn't another hierarchy, it's sanctuary." "Sanctuary?" Alpha Chen asked. "For the exiled, the cast out, the ones who don't fit into traditional pack structures." Kai's voice was steady, certain. "Somewhere they can build new lives without persecution or judgment." "And where would this sanctuary be?" Dominic asked. Kai looked at Serafina, who nodded encouragingly. "The old territories in the Cascade Mountains. Far enough from civilization to avoid human interference, but accessible to anyone who needs refuge." "The sanctuary pack," Serafina added. "With Isabella as my beta, if she's willing." Isabella's face lit up with something that might have been hope. "You'd want me? After everything I've done?" "You risked everything to do what was right," Serafina said firmly. "That's exactly the kind of wolf we need." The council voted unanimously to recognize the Sanctuary Pack as an official territory, with special protections for anyone seeking refuge there. As they prepared to leave Moonrise Mountain, Dominic approached them one final time. "I want you to know," he said quietly, "if things had been different, if I hadn't been such a fool." "But they weren't different," Serafina interrupted gently. "And that's okay. We all ended up where we needed to be." She looked down at Luna, who was watching Dominic with those ancient eyes. "Would you like to hold her? Just for a moment?" Dominic's hands shook as he took the baby, and for an instant, the broken Alpha King was just a man holding his daughter. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "And strong. I can feel her power." "She'll need guidance as she grows," Serafina said. "From someone who understands the burden of leadership. If you ever want to visit the sanctuary." "I'd like that," Dominic said, carefully handing Luna back. "I'd like that very much." 5 years later. The mountain meadow was alive with the sound of children playing. Serafina sat on the porch of their cabin, watching Luna chase a butterfly through the tall grass. At 5 years old, their daughter was everything the prophecy had promised: strong, intelligent, and possessed of an innate ability to bring peace wherever she went. But she wasn't alone anymore. "Mama, look." A little boy with dark hair and silver eyes came running up to her, clutching a handful of wildflowers. "I made them grow." "Very good, Tommy," Serafina said, ruffling his hair. "Your mama will be so proud." Tommy was Isabella's son, Marcus's biological child, but raised with nothing but love and kindness. His abilities were different from Luna's but no less remarkable. Where she brought peace, he brought growth and renewal. 3 more this month, Kai said, settling beside her on the porch steps. "Word is spreading that it's not just Luna. There are moon children being born in packs across the continent." "A new generation," Serafina mused, watching their daughter help Tommy arrange his flowers. Maybe that was always the real prophecy. Not one child to unite the packs, but a whole generation of children who would make unity possible. The kids from the Portland pack should arrive tomorrow, Kai said. Both parents were killed in a car accident. Human authorities would have put them in foster care. They'll be safe here. Serafina leaned against her husband's strong shoulder. All of them will be safe here. The sanctuary pack had grown to over 300 wolves, exiles, orphans, abuse survivors, and those who simply didn't fit into traditional pack structures. It wasn't always easy, but it was home. Look, Luna called out, pointing at the sky. A shooting star. Serafina followed her daughter's gaze and saw the streak of light blazing across the darkening sky. But Kai's enhanced eyesight caught something else, the glint of metal in the distance, a car making its way up the mountain road. Another one, he said softly. Another one, Serafina agreed. Whether it was a family seeking refuge, a lone wolf looking for belonging, or someone fleeing a situation they couldn't escape alone, the sanctuary would be here. It would always be here. Luna ran back to them, her face bright with excitement. Did you see it, Mama? The star? I saw it, sweetheart. It was bringing someone new, Luna said with the matter-of-fact certainty that still took Serafina's breath away. Someone who needs us. Kai stood, already moving toward the road to meet whoever was coming. It was what they did, opened their doors, opened their hearts, and proved that sometimes the greatest strength came not from conquest, but from compassion. As the shooting star faded into memory, Serafina gathered her daughter close and watched her mate disappear into the darkness to greet another lost soul. The moon child's destiny, it turned out, hadn't been to rule the supernatural world. It had been to save it, one broken heart at a time. And in the mountains of the Cascade Range, where ancient magic still flowed through stone and stream, that work continued. It would always continue. After all, there were still plenty of stars in the sky, and each one might be carrying someone home. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.